Hi there.
Be patient.
Hi, Roger.
There's many things with either one of us right now.
Thank you.
Thanks for hopping on, folks. I think we'll wait just another couple of minutes and wait for a couple more CBRC members to join us. Good evening again. It looks like we do have 6 CBRC members here now. So if either of our CBRC leadership team members, Stefan or Taz, you're both in the room. So if you would like to kick us off, please feel free to get started, or if you'd like to opt to wait for a few more members to join, just let me know.
Alexandra, it's fine with me if you want to give a couple more minutes. That's perfectly fine.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and wait a couple more minutes. Thanks for folks who joined on time. I appreciate you.
At 8 minutes, it seems like it's fair to assume nobody else is coming.
Thanks, Erin. I do see Mariah just getting into this space. I think she might be in transit coming into the panelist part of the webinar. But yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense to start. I'll go ahead and check with Mariah, Taz, and Stefan. Do you all feel that we can kick off the meeting now?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So let's get right into it. Welcome, everyone. So glad to see folks. We have a little bit of a shorter agenda than we usually have, but didn't want to pass up the opportunity to touch base and provide some information. So I have just a little bit of quick housekeeping, and then we'll run through the agenda. So wanted to share some updates on dates. So you'll have seen some of these, but I'm also in this meeting suggesting some new dates, and we'll, want to make sure that these work for a majority or a good number of CBRC members. So we can handle this scheduling, the specifics of scheduling, but wanted to share what I was thinking. So we have our proposed budget being presented to the board. This date did shift from April 23rd. So we have the proposed budget on April 24th, which is now a Wednesday. It's going to accompany other content in the board's regular meeting agenda. I'm suggesting now that we meet the following evening on a Thursday. That will keep with our typical Thursday meeting cadence. And we will have the document. The CBRC could attend the proposed budget presentation and have the benefit of having seen the slides and content that's presented on that Wednesday night. And we'll be able to start working on the report. And then I'm suggesting meeting the following Thursday as well. That will provide 2 dates to work on the reports. We may need more time than that. So I think we can elect to have more meetings, or we can wait and see how much progress we make and schedule additional meetings as needed. The next item here is a TBD due date for the CBRC report. I'm hoping that we can get some extra time, but we would need to work with our board office and board leadership ultimately on the due date. But it is a pretty compressed timeline, so I hope that we can find some flexibility there. And then we're still tracking towards May 7th as the presentation to the board of the CBRC report. I'm going to pause there if there were any questions or comments on those dates for now. Okay, so if not, we have the community information sessions that we've discussed. We are progressing in planning those and planning to host them in May. And I will let CBRC know you would be welcome to attend as a community member, and they'll should be good information for the community as we start to socialize and provide details on the budget. The other item would just be that I'm linking to the form where you can submit questions. You can always email me if you have questions. And then the kind of last bit of housekeeping is that if you would like to have a physical copy of Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the budget documents, let me know and we'll find a way to get that to you. You can also use the electronic version as you prefer. So, this is our agenda for tonight. We do have public comment, and our community member who wanted to provide public comment is here. We wanted to share some SPED resources with you as you start to consider the proposed budget. There's some information that SPED provided to the board, and we're just sharing that as an FYI. And then we're going to hold some time to reflect on the work session that CBRC and the board had back in March. We're going to hold time to start to dig into what the budget document looked like for adopted in the current year. So start to look at those reports, and hopefully that will support as folks start to analyze our proposed budget document. And then we're going to hold time to discuss how the CBRC's budget review and local option levy review should come together for this year. And then we will close out. So that is our agenda. Any questions, comments, thoughts on that? What we plan for this evening? Okay, and if not, we do have public comments. So Allison, you should be able to come off mute and provide comment. Thank you for being here.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm at Rose City Futsal in this back staff room. So excuse me if there's a little background music or sound. Hello, Community Budget Review Committee. My name is Allison Taylor, and I am a parent of Ben, a second grader in Portland Public Schools Vietnamese Dual Language Immersion Program, or VDLI. I taught high school math for over 17 years in PPS at both Roosevelt and Grant High Schools. The purpose of my speaking tonight is to ask you to add a second teacher for Rose City Park Elementary's, or RCP's, third grade VDLI program. Right now, my son's third grade will have 32 students. Third grade is arguably the most important year for students. A study by the Annie E. Casey Foundation found that the ability to read by third grade is critical to a child's success in life, lifelong school, lifelong learning potential, and their ability to contribute to the nation's economy and security. Gail Robinson writes, being at grade level is meaningful at any age, but third grade is the crucial year when students make the leap from learning to read to reading to learn. For seasoned educators, we know and are reminded of how this year can be a predictor of fortunate or unfortunate future consequences. Of course, this change impacts students most of all. This specific group of kids has a wide range of energy, ability, and needs that make these students a high priority for a smaller class size. Last year, they missed Vietnamese instruction for a third of the year because their teacher was on leave, so they are already behind. Students are coming from outside the neighborhood, even outside our school district, and commuting long distance to choose VDLI. They believe it is that important for their child's experience. During both of my son's first and second grade years, newcomers from Vietnam are welcomed in this class with both a teacher and students who can speak their language and understand where they are from. Let's pause for a second at this idea. Vietnamese students in the VDLI program have a teacher in every grade that speaks their home language and shares their culture and background. Those of you who come from historically underrepresented communities know how extraordinary this would have been for you in your school experience. What a gift for these new students, and also what a new challenge for their teacher. With 32 students already forecasted, what capacity does our third grade classroom have to be able to accommodate these newcomers going forward? I also believe that PPS saves money by having extra capacity in our VDLI classrooms to accommodate new Vietnamese students who speak no English. The current students will see a double in their class size from this year and a large increase from the expected district elementary average of 23.2 students. For the teacher, it creates a huge workload for them. As we know, more students means more family communication, more feedback to provide students, more assessments to grade, more accommodations to manage, more 504 and IEP meetings, more supplies to gather. However, for the Vietnamese program, there's even more work to do. PPS adopted a new curriculum for our elementary schools that do not have Vietnamese translation available. Yet, it is available for all the other dual language immersion programs. This teacher translates 6 content areas into another language. The other third grade teachers do not have to do this work at Rose City Park Elementary or any other elementary in this district. For the district, this program should be held up as a huge win for equity in education. This program supports students and families from a historically underserved community. The VDLI program is closer to the ideal 50-50 mix of students from native English and Vietnamese families compared to the other DLI programs that serve mostly white families. After English and Spanish, the Vietnamese language is the third most spoken language in Oregon, and the impact on dual language programs for our emerging bilingual students outperform any other ELL programs offered anywhere. Instead of 1 bus for our students coming from outside the neighborhood, we should have 3. Instead of 1 elementary, middle, high school housing for the VDLI program, we should have 3. If adequately funded and supported, PPS's VDLI program could and should be an example for the nation of best practices for our emerging bilingual students. Lastly, I am told there are 2 full-time equivalent or FTE teaching positions on the scholar side of Rose City Park's kindergarten program. I also hear the incoming kindergarten class may be very small. My hope is that if this group of students only needs 1 teacher, the remaining FTE will still go to classrooms at Rose City Park Elementary. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Allison. I appreciate that you made time to come here tonight. CBRC, I wanted you to know that Allison's comments were also provided in writing and are linked in these slides for this meeting, which I sent to you before our meeting started. I'm going to just pause in case there were any comments or questions from our CBRC addressing Allison.
I just want to say thank you for the community feedback and for making us aware of this.
Roger, I see your hand up.
Yes, following the board policy, we will not respond to the input we received. I too want to thank Allison for sharing her points of view with us.
Director Sullivan?
Yes, I just wanted to be sure that I heard it right, that you think there will be extra FTE for kindergarten, but that might be small. So you're just hoping that those FTEs stay with you. Is that?
Stay with Rose City Park and really stay in the classroom. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I don't see any other hands, but I know we're all appreciative. So thank you so much, Allison, and the other folks that you brought along as well. I really appreciate that you were able to be here tonight.
Thank you.
So this is more of an FYI for you all. Grace Groom, our CBRC member, and I had an email exchange where she had requested information on the SPED budget. There's some kind of preliminary information here. So there was a meeting back in March at the board. It was on March 5th. And our SPED chief, or Office of Student Support Services chief, Jay Buno, provided information to the board. And I'm linking to the video of that as well as the meeting materials presented there. So there is some budget information there. I know that this budget is of special interest to folks. So if you have questions as you review these, let us know and we can prioritize getting them answered in support of your report and your awareness of the SPED budget and the changes that are contemplated. So those are just linked there for you. And then move us along. So this is our time to reflect on the work session that we had with the board and CBRC. So I would like to kick it off to Mariah or Stefan, Taz, other CBRC leadership, if you can help us through this reflection.
Well, I can offer some thoughts here. We actually got a fairly brief presentation from the board on the budget, just kind of due to other things on the agenda. But we went through looking at, kind of forecast for the coming year. And I think we're really going to need a lot more specificity. So I think it will be the job of this committee to dive into the budget books. And we have two-part work coming up here for everyone who, just to remind us, we will review the levy information that's provided to us largely by staff, and then go through the proposed budget. And in the past, we've compared these against the board goals. So for third grade reading and so forth. Don't know if anybody else wants to jump in before we talk about a little bit about kind of how we might go about this. So in the past, we've begun by kind of taking a section to look at trends in the budget, trends that are impacting things like graduation rates, but also, right now it's going to be declining enrollment, and looking forward at some of the cuts that are coming forward with from this past year with contracts and things that have gone forward. I see Roger. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, my comment was the same as yours. We didn't receive a whole lot of specificity at the work session, and I was hoping with Myung on the call tonight, maybe he has more specificity to share with us. If not, we need to move ahead with our assignments and do the best we can.
Yeah, should I comment on that a little bit? Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming back to the meeting. And yes, I totally appreciate and agree with the comments that Mariah and Roger have made. And not to, at the risk of, sort of restating some of the comments that I think I made at the work session, we are, number one, looking forward to sharing the details with CBRC, and we're sequencing the communications in such a way that because we are in a budget reduction cycle this year, as you all know, there will be some reductions of positions, and we have to go through a intentionally timed sequence of communications, including to employees that are affected by the recommended budget. So a lot of work has been happening to prepare those recommendations, but unfortunately we aren't able to provide a lot of details tonight either. So what we're hoping to do is to sort of set the stage, set the groundwork, and help all of you get a running start, and especially for the new members, by orienting you to the format of the budget document, so you'll be better positioned to kind of know what to look for when the budget book is produced. So that's really kind of the one of the main objectives for tonight, and hopefully that will help. But in the meantime, we totally understand the appropriate desire to get into the details for the recommendations that are forthcoming. I see Aaron's hand.
Yeah. So I'm just confused. What function do we have if there are actual, I mean, I can't think of anything that's more rubber meets the road transactions happening before we've even seen the budget. So you're letting people go, and yet we don't have a budget in our hands. So what is the purpose? The horse is out of the barn, and we can say, whoop, that was the wrong horse. Is that how this is supposed to flow?
Well, there are sorry, there might be a little ambient noise behind me. The steps in the budget process do include a proposed budget being produced in or being shared in April, and then the board taking about a month to review, deliberate, including receiving the report from the CBRC, and then approving the budget on May 21st. So some of these steps are happening on parallel tracks, but the board doesn't approve the budget until.
How are you doing, Meow?
Sorry, Roseanne.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm on.
Oh, you're a CBRC?
Yeah, sorry. I should close my door. But anyway, there is the potential for some, differences between the proposed budget and the approved budget, and that to the extent that that happens, certainly one of the important sources of information and feedback that the board will consider is the work of the CBRC. So it's a little unfortunately we don't have, the timeline doesn't let us stage everything so that the budget is approved before we start taking some steps to to prepare for the budget to be implemented. But if there are different decisions that are approved, then those would be adjusted. I mean, our plans would be adjusted accordingly, including, adjustments to any department or school related budgets, including personnel.
But people cannot be unlaid off, correct?
People can be recalled.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I mean, notices can be rescinded and such. Yeah.
Okay. It just seemed
You
like we're
know-
kind of putting the like all the action's going to happen, and then we're just sort of like sitting on the deck after it's already over. All right.
I just like to add, and that's a really good question, Aaron. I would also like to add, like, I think it's our kind of duty to make sure that you are all well informed in the process and literate in the budget process, so that when the superintendent proposes the budget, you all are ready to be able to analyze the budget that is presented.
Stefan, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Aaron, I think you're right. I think like I want to just share my observation from last year when I joined that we have some recommendations, but essentially the budget moved forward after that. I think like two things I want to highlight there is, one thing is that some of our recommendations were put into place or considered afterwards because there's some additional budget funds that became available, but all got just tumbled together with the contract negotiations. But there's always like the budget is not the end point, and to that point is also like I think like some of these things are like some sort of like a longer term considerations that might not be important. I think like to me, I think we're bleeding a little bit into the next one, but like to me, I see our role as reporting to the board and providing them another source of information and reflections, and I think we really appreciate that. And sometimes who knows, like sometimes something comes out of that that's relevant for that budget.
Roger?
I appreciate what Mian presented to us, and I too don't believe we have any way of working ourselves out of this dilemma that we're confronted with, as Aaron, as an observer, where the horse is out of the barn before before we have the data to fully address the question. My observation is from what has been presented thus far is that CBRC is going to be confronted with this same dilemma next go around and the following year going around, and so maybe if the budget gurus can put their heads together and figure out how we can ameliorate this in some way. CBRC's chore is not an awesome one for the next several years. So, and I won't be around. So, good luck, people.
Unfortunately, this is Roger's last term here, and we will miss you, Roger. I think we should move on for the sake of time. So, Mariah, I think that you started to segue towards this discussion on the development of the report and the local option levy review. So we can move ahead to this if it makes sense to you to kick this off for us and talk through how you see this coming together. Any of our CBRC leadership co-chairs, vice chairs who've discussed this, feel free to let us know what you're thinking about that.
Yeah, so what we would propose doing is borrowing some of the framework that we used from last year, taking some of those sections. I encourage everybody to read last year's budget advisory letter so you can see kind of what we're following. We have gone through and again, given that kind of intro section with looking at current trends. If there are any trends that other people would like to call out, we would welcome you to come in and help us define those. I think the main ones are around enrollment, but also graduation too, and funding. Moving on from that, we'll take the board goals and kind of piece those out. Some of us have different interests and areas of expertise. I think Grace wanted to take on, I believe, is third grade reading as one that she wants to. And I'll just say, you know, if you want to kind of own a piece of the development here, we'll all read it and look at it and be able to offer input on that. But we do appreciate people taking leadership in areas where they have, you know, either expertise or interest. Roger indicated that he would like to, again, it's been one of our goals for many years running, talk a bit about the deferred maintenance that's happening at PPS. There's a small portion as a part of the teacher contract, you know, dedicated to some immediate improvements, but we still have schools with things like open sewage that's impacted days open, things like that. And long-term, just the backlog of buildings that are, you know, my school is over 100 years old. So that's kind of the format that we're thinking of taking. I'll just open this for any input on that. And if folks want to, you know, at this point, kind of think about an area that they might want to take or might want to tackle or give a, you know, kind of second read or opinion to. I can't see just with my screen, like if there's any hands up, maybe Alexander can, or if anybody wants.
Yeah, I don't see any hands. Maybe while people are thinking, I'll just mention that I have links to these documents here that include the content from last year. So we still have that frame intact as well as the content there. So those are there for you in the slides. And I would also mention, Mariah, that you had, I believe you are assigned to the local option levy review.
I wasn't sure if Stefan had interest in that as well. Don't recall. But I certainly can. I'll provide that overview. But things that we may want to look at of interest to me is changes in class size, if we want to look at that across, you know, and with the ESSER funding and other things concluding, taking a look at that as well. So I think we can go in and call out. In terms of the timeline, we have a next meeting. It's on the 16th. Is that right?
No, it's our timeline has shifted because we are a little bit, well, I mean, it's I'm proposing some new dates. Let me see. I don't have them committed to memory because we just are suggesting them now. So I'm going to suggest Thursday, April 18th as the next meeting. Or I'm sorry, Thursday, the 25th. So the day after the proposed budget is presented to the board. So this shifts our timeline quite a bit back. So we have more space now between this meeting and our next meeting.
Okay. And then what is our timeline from there until the point our report is due? The 25th. And
so we have the 25th, and then we have another meeting I'm suggesting that we hold on May 2nd. And then the presentation to the board is on May 7th. So we need to define the due date. I need to do some work. Myung and I will reach out to our board office and see what we can do with board leadership to get a reasonable due date for that, because it is very compressed this year. There's not a lot of time to react to and analyze the budget after you'll receive it.
So are we required to give the board 7 days?
Typically it's 2 weeks, but I think we'll obviously not will be able to do that. So I think we should take as much time as we can get. And at the same time, there's a balance where you would like to provide it early so that they can read and digest the report. But that is TBD right now. So I'll communicate in writing between now and our next meeting as soon as I can what the due date will be.
I'll just say I do see a hand up, but I'll just say I really feel like we need a minimum of a week for this committee to give meaningful input. All right, I will let you call hands here. I saw Stefan, I see Roger, I see Patty.
Yeah, I think Roger was first, it looked like.
Okay, well, I trust that you will contact Roseanne in the board office. And Patty, this is where you can weigh in as our liaison. And I believe we actually whittled it all the way down to about 3 days before the board met last go around due to the high compression that we've experienced in the last several years in trying to develop a report and make it meaningful. So do the best you can, and that's my 2 cents.
Director Sullivan?
Yes, I have down that we have a meeting next Tuesday.
Yes, the 16th, we're going to release that time and shift our meetings towards later in April.
Okay, good. So that's gone. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stefan?
Stefan, you're muted.
So about that. So the budget comes out on the 24th, right? And then the next meeting, our next meeting is on 25th. So I was just wondering, that next meeting, is that something where we should plan on having some idea about the budget and using that as a jumping board for that? It's awfully close after the budget is released to have like any idea of what's happening.
We can, I think we want to make use of, I mean, my feeling about it is that we want to make use of that time and hit the ground running as much as we can once the document is available. So that was my thinking behind proposing the 25th, but very open to comment. And that is a good comment. So you will be able to see the presentation on the 24th. So there will be staff information, but it's true that it would be hard to dive into this multi-100-page document with a lot of detail. So if people would rather wait and shift till the next week, we can do that. Any other thoughts on when we should meet, assuming that you have the document on the 24th?
So I'm looking at the last year's budget, and honestly, I mean, I've been around financial documents before, and like I don't, you could hand it to me today, and I don't know that I would be able to, like, my sitting with it would make any difference. So I honestly, I mean, I can't be the only one that looks at this and just says, "What is this?" This doesn't make any sense to me. Like I was expecting like something that kind of you could break down and drill down and see what rolls into what, but it's just scattershot of information.
There's a method to it, and hopefully we'll be able to help you make sense of it. I know it is a really large
I guess
document.
I'm frustrated that, I mean, here it is April, and like we've been hearing a bunch of slides of nothing. We should have been going through this old document so that we were familiar with it. Like it's going to take weeks to get up to speed to even be able to make sense of what we're going to get handed to us. I thought at some point we'd sit down and actually go through, what does this stuff mean? When I asked the question, where are, where's the budget for curriculum? The curriculum changes. Nobody could really tell me where it was. So I guess I'm getting frustrated that I feel like I'm wasting time and that this is just kind of like a bunch of hogwash. Like we don't have meaningful input. These numbers, nobody's actually said what they mean, and then what we're going to be comparing against. So I thought we would have been doing that already. Like where are we looking at?
We're providing an overview of the document this evening. So in close proximity to when you're going to see the proposed document. So that's what we're going to spend the rest of the time in this meeting doing. and I see Stefan you have your hand up. You're muted still.
You would think I have figured this out by now. So I just want to say, yeah, and thanks for feedback. I think that's well received. And I think we should just go ahead and look into this budget so we get some actual instead of so we actually can look at the details.
Okay, so Mariah, I think we can go ahead and shift towards our budget document overview. And I think that this was a good start to the conversation. So just let me know if there was anything else, Mariah, before we move along. So in the slides that I sent you, there are links to our adopted volume 1. There also is a link to our volume 2, which is our school reports. The school reports represents the proposed budget. And again, this is for the current year, so the 23-24 school year. I'm also linking to, as an FYI, our ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which presents our audited actuals. So if you want to follow along, you can access the links. Just want to make sure can you all see the table of contents to the budget book right now in my screen share? Yeah, it looks like you can. So this is, again, our adopted budget document for the current year. We always use student art on the cover. And the second page of our document presents the budget award. So this is the budget award for the prior year budget document. And I'm just going to hover over this because this is provided by the Association of School Business Officials International. And we have sought out this this award for several years. And the practices and standards that we follow for how we organize and present the information is based on the requirements from this meritorious budget award. So one of the requirements of the award is that we present information in these specific sections that are intended to be liftable documents. So our document, you can see, is quite long. It's almost 300 pages for the 23-24 budget, and it's organized into several sections. We have an executive summary, an organizational section, financial section, an informational section, and then appendices. So each of these are required sections. And like I said, they're intended to be liftable. So different community members or, just people who interact with this document and who need this document for information have different purposes for it and different information needs. So if you wanted to just access a summary, there's an executive summary for you there that does also provide within our budget overview the highest level kind of way of looking at our budgets with some summaries. The organizational section is more generally about PPS. The financial section, I really want to hover over this content tonight so that this feels accessible to you as you start to digest the budget. And then the informational section is, all about the context of the school district, including our debt limit, the demographic data, principal property tax payers, and as well as school staffing. So it's quite a lot of information, even in the informational section as well. So I'm just going to navigate by using these links in the table of contents. This is a good, quick way to access the content. So I just clicked on that link in the table of contents, and now I'm in the superintendent's budget message. Our superintendent's budget message is also another good place to access information about the budget at a really high level. And it shows what our district leadership wants to emphasize and explain. and set tone for in the budget document. And then this describes the budget document format that I was just explaining. So I don't want to go into all of this content, but I'm just going to kind of scroll through. And then, Juno, I was hoping I could pass it over to you for the budget overview. So I'm just kind of scrolling through with this, had some of our strategic plan and vision information. And then this is our budget overview. It's a really, really helpful part of our document.
Yep. Thanks, Alexandra. So the budget overview shows kind of gives you all the background information for Portland Public Schools, where a lot of our funding comes from whether it's the permanent property tax rate or the local option levy and additional sources. It also gives you an idea of how the budget is prepared, and it also sets the tone for the different elements of the budget that the district leadership want to highlight for this year. And it also reiterates kind of a lot of the board goals and the district strategies that we use, as well as the major funding sources. So if you ever have any questions on kind of like what the district wants to focus on, how it fits within the board goals, where the money is coming from to kind of help achieve those goals, this is a great section to read. This also expands a little bit more upon our budget assumptions. And so where the revenue comes from, it breaks down kind of the detail. For example, in the state school fund, it breaks down district average daily membership that's weighted. And so that is, student headcount plus additional weights for special education or ELL students and so on. And it also gives you the overview of how we fit into the broader state of Oregon. You can also see on that page all the different revenue factors. So we, for example, a big portion of revenue that we get, it comes from property taxes. And so there's a delicate balance between the assessed market value and the real market value for real estate in the Portland area for property taxes. And so this will give you kind of the breakdown over the past several years, as well as things like our average daily enrollment. So the ADMR is our real average daily enrollment. So that's our actual headcount. That's how many kids are in seats. And you also see what our weighted enrollment is, or our ADMW. And then the state school formula does something called an extended ADMW, and that's what our state school fund is based on. And it's always either the current year or the previous year, whichever one is the higher. So it kind of smooths out that curve if there's a drastic change from year to year. We also have an overview of our debt schedules, both bonded and our long-term debt. And then you can kind of see an overview of our financials. And this is kind of that high level. Going on to the next page, this is where you'll kind of get that high level overview. This is a capture of all funds, across all funds, including general funds, special revenue, our debt service funds, our capital projects funds, and our internal service funds, all put together, and how those funds are, how those dollars are broken out in these specific categories. So this first one is for total resources. So these are where the different categories of revenue that we get. The next page will show the total requirements. The requirements are our expenditures, what we plan on spending, and also includes our contingencies and fund balance, or our reserves. And So that first one, the total requirements by major function, that tells you all the different kinds of programs that we that these dollars are spent on. So you can see things like the 1,000, which is all of our instruction, our support services, and community services, and so on down the line. On the next page, you're going to see those same requirements, but broken out by major object. And so the object is exactly what are we spending on. So whether it's licensed salaries, classified salaries, if you're looking at how much are all the associated payroll costs, or how much supplies are we purchasing? This is a good kind of high level overview of that. And then the next page is our all funds 3-year forecast. And so you can see kind of how we're trending out a few years, what it'll look like. And then we have things broken down by comparison of a year-over-year look. If you can scroll down just a little bit more, Alexandra. And so we can see this year over year of our contingencies and unappropriate ending fund balance. Oh, sorry, a little bit. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong part. Okay, that right there is our a breakdown by object code for in our 3-year forecast. And then our contingencies and appropriate ending fund balance. In the general fund, again, we only budget contingencies as our reserve. And so you can see our budget as well in that little bar chart. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over Alexandra. Right here, you can see the bar chart kind of comparing year over year between fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24 of what our general fund looks like at a high level. And we have several more pages kind of broken down by general fund, broken down by special revenue. That kind of gives you, again, that high level. And this entire section, this executive summary section is supposed to be that kind of high level liftable document that Alexandra mentioned earlier. We also kind of delve a little bit deeper into the state school fund here. So this is a really good page to understand where the 2 biggest sources of our funding comes from, both the state school fund and our property taxes. And then any kind of notable changes, policy changes, academic policy changes that we have here, including our staffing. And then right after that, we also have kind of that high level capital project summary. And then we round it out with a list of our school board, our CBRC members, and our administrative personnel. Any questions?
Dr. Sullivan?
Yes, I know I'm working on the levy now. And one thing it says about the levy is that the CBRC will be making sure that the levy money is spent only on staff, on teaching staff. Is that, how do we do that? How does CBRC make sure that happens?
So we will be providing CBRC with data, and the CBRC reviews the current year data. So what have we revenue have we collected in local option levy, and the revenue is placed in a side account, so it's segregated from other revenue. And so staff provides data that shows the amount that we've received, and then the amount of teachers that would fund. So most of the information is provided by staff to CBRC, and then CBRC is reviewing it and providing a report on that. Chuno or Myung, is there anything else that you would want to mention about CBRC's role in local option?
I think Roger has his hand up as well.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, Roger, do you want to go ahead?
Well, I was just going to provide Patty. Historically, that was the dilemma that CBRC faced, and then a side account was created, and henceforth it's been much easier. We get the data from the district as to how many positions were funded. To do that, we calculate what the salary and benefits are and divide that number into the total number collected, and therefore that's the number that the local option levy funded for that given year. And so the report becomes rather routine now, and it really is the easiest task that we face each year.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure it did get done because that's where we're promising people. So
It's on the list.
good.
Thank you. So the next section here is the organizational section. I'm just going to hover over the table of contents for sake of time. But I will point out that some of this content around classification of revenues and expenditures, as well as the financial board policies, is really good context and background for what you see in the budget book. I was also going to note that I can do a Control F in this document, and then let me see if it pops up for you. You can see it. So just navigating in the PDF, if I do Control F here, and then I wanted to see the reserves policy, for example, if I type in reserves, see, we should have had a reserves policy. If I type in policy, that word is going to come up a lot. But this is just, my point is that this is a nice way to navigate in the document. So this has taken me to the financial board policies, and then we have different administrative directives that we present here in the budget book. And with that, we wanted to provide an overview of the financial section. I'm also kind of watching the clock, Juno.
Yep.
But okay.
Yeah, I can kind of go through this pretty quickly. The financial overview kind of gives you some high points, but what we'll go into, it also has a little bit of definition for our fund classifications, kind of a glossary for our revenues, our expenditures in the form of our programs or our functions. Those are the things that we spend money on. Or the areas that we spend money on, and then the things that we spend money on are objects. And so those are like salaries and benefits and so on. So this gives you a good breakdown of kind of the purposes for our coding. And then we can jump directly into the financial details. And each section is going to have a summary section before it. I see Grace's hand up.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to say that that page, those few pages that you just went over with the details of what the different line items mean, that's the piece that really helped me when I first started on CBRC, kind of understanding what all these pages of documents meant. So, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of the gentleman that spoke earlier about his feelings of frustration. I felt the same way when I first started, and those pages were sort of key for me to understand. And I'm still learning, but because it is a very complex document, but those few pages really helped me to understand a little bit more of where I could find, where I could look to see trends and patterns and be able to make observations and then recommendations from there. So just wanted to highlight those. Thanks.
That's a great perspective. Thank you, Grace.
Grace, can you say those pages again to help me?
The ones that I think it basically just says the classic, what's the title of it? Classification?
Classification.
The fund classifications, yes, on page 70. 70 is where it starts.
And I believe there's also, is there also like an expenditure, like with that spells out the number and then it describes what's underneath it. It's kind of like your glossary for the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great way to see it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Grace. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, 70 through 78 will be a great little overview of kind of our coding structure and gives you definitions on each of those items. The next section, all funds resources. Again, this kind of reiterates, but goes slightly more into depth, kind of the high level view of all our funds put together. And it gives you both resources and requirements. Again, resources are revenues plus beginning fund balance. Our requirements are our expenditures plus any reserves. And it breaks down again our resources and then our requirements by function and our requirements by object. It also gives us the forecast. And so these are all the high level information. And then when we get to, for example, the general fund, this is where we'll see everything broken out by the general fund. And we have um, starting from here, we'll see that higher level of that overall fund, but then it'll go into the details as well. And so here we're going to see that same pattern. We're going to see our revenues or our resources, and then we're going to see our requirements or our expenditures by function and by object. And then we'll go into the details. And here, Aaron, is a good place to be able to see exactly a little bit more detailed of the expense by line item. And so, for example, here is our revenue, and then on the next page is where our requirements by function starts. And so again, these are our functions or our the programs that we provide. And then if you scroll just a little bit further down, you'll see the requirements by object as well. And again, those are the things that we purchase or the services that we purchase. And so this will give you a more descriptive, kind of detailed look of exactly what line items that we budget for.
Is there an actual living spreadsheet that can be accessed to be able to like actually like get into the numbers rather than kind of in this kind of locked way?
That is a good question. I don't think that is something that is available on our website. Let me look into that for you.
Okay. Even a
Um,
CSV or Excel or something in the
Yeah,
future.
let me look into that for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely understand, like, for those savvy in Excel, like being able to manipulate the data in Excel can certainly be helpful for sure. And then, so this is a pretty extensively detailed section of our financials. And so you can actually see, and it breaks it down to like textbooks and um, salaries and benefits and so on. So it's a pretty good breakdown. And then so each of these throughout this section, throughout the financial section, you'll just see a lot of this information repeated just for different funds. So this is the general fund. You'll also see them for the special revenue funds. That includes things like nutrition and our grants and so on. And then in the 300 funds, you'll see all our debt service funds. In the 400 funds, you'll see our capital projects funds. And then in our 600s, you'll see our self-insurance funds or our internal service funds. Kind of sprinkled throughout this section, you'll also see the occasional like additional narrative to just kind of give you a little overview of these fund groups, these major funds, and any kind of relevant information that is to be kind of a focal point for a year or a couple of years, just like this ESSER, like all the ESSER relief dollars that we received over the past few years, which were one-time funding from the federal government. And so in preparation for this coming proposed budget, it's important to remember that it was one-time funding and it is going away this year. So we won't have it for next year. The purse stabilization fund, yeah, these are all our special revenue funds. These are things that are restricted funds, so we have to spend them in a restricted manner on pre-specified services or items. Do we have any questions on this part? Grace, I see your hand up.
I'm sorry, I don't know why my phone does that. I lowered it, but it doesn't. But I do have one quick question. I think it doesn't have to be answered now, but I'm going to put it on the portal. One question that keeps coming up is, how we'll be able to see which of the expenditures for staff are student facing versus non-student facing. And that's something that comes up a lot every budget year. And it's kind of sometimes hard to see that. And I'm not saying that, one is good and one is bad, but it's always a question that the community asks, like how much of it is
Absolutely.
kind of non-student facing and student facing. And it would be really helpful to somehow have that accessible, or at least, breadcrumb trail to look at this, so we can kind of see that more clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a great question. And I believe we do have some elements in the next section, the informational section, that might be able to answer part of that, as well as our volume 2 has a lot of that information for you as well. And we'll make sure to point that out to you.
Yeah, that was a good. Were there any other questions on the financial section before we move on? Director Sullivan?
Yes, at the very start, you showed what would happen last year, this year, and next year, or what you were anticipating. And so that's going to be very different what we have to spend this year because of all the union negotiations and all the things that have happened, right? So it'll look this year, I don't know where that was, but it seemed like very first you had like.
It's what I'm presenting now, the forecast here, where we project out for multiple years.
Right. And so I imagine those projections are not right anymore. Like 25.
Correct. They are usually, for a snapshot, a point in time.
Mhm.
Correct. And so we'll have updated forecast information in the next one.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Roger?
I'd only point out that Grace is accurate in observing that the membership on this committee is a learning process. And I would caution anyone not to be highly critical of themselves about understanding things. My experience has been in serving on this committee that it's roughly about a 3-year learning process before people really become somewhat well acquainted with how to deal with the large document that were presented each year. So don't be too critical of yourselves.
Thanks, Roger.
So the only other thing I wanted to highlight in the financial section was our Multnomah Education Service District allocation. So this would be good to read through and is an interesting and important allocation for school districts in Multnomah County. The Education Service District provides some funding through transit dollars, as well as services through resolution. And you can see the information that we present on this is our actual service selection, and it has details here on what type of services we elect to have through the MESD, the Multnomah Education Service District. And so you can see as an example, some of these services that are provided by the service district are supporting school nurse services, so registered nurses, school health assistants. You can see that that's quite a large number of FTE in our schools that are provided by resolution dollars, as well as specialized programming, an outdoor school, special education supports. So these are services that appear in our schools and are represented there. So I wanted to go through some of this content that's in the informational section. Generally, this content is statistical in nature. So it's showing some of the contextual factors around our budgeting. So this is about assessed value, tax levies and collections, budget's effect on the average homeowner. So around our tax rates and how those impact our taxpayers or homeowners, principal property taxpayers, demographic data. So this provides just some contextual information, but I wanted to hone in on Grace, to your question on resource allocations. We have this pie chart breaking down direct instruction to all others. Within all others, this could include other building supports or staff that are at schools but are not providing direct instruction. And then this report called the FTE by major function and employee type report is good insight into how we organize our staff and their orientation towards what sort of service they provide. You can't from this necessarily assume a student facing or school based, but it does, when you look at this minor function, for example, school administration activities of school direction and supervision. So that would be in schools. And you can see how that's broken down by the different employee types that we capture here: licensed staff, classified, non-represented, administrators, and directors or program admins. Mariah, did you have your hand up a moment ago?
I don't see her online.
Okay, I think we are running late. So maybe she was letting us know that she had to leave. The other content in our informational section covers school staffing. It provides by grade band details on class size ranges and the different staffing models and ratios that were used to formulate the school staffing needs for that year. There's also includes school-wide support and these staffing FTE values. And these are all based on the school type. So PPS provides differentiated funding by school type, and it is not the same across the board. There are different schools that have higher needs, and that is all detailed in this section. I think that is all I wanted to go into within this informational section, but all of the school staffing content would be great to read. And so you have a special interest in performance measures. It also provides information on the graduation rates, student demographics. And then I think I'm just going to advance towards our appendix. So the content in our appendices here, we have another expenditures overview. This provides somewhat more lengthy descriptions of the expenditures. So we have classified represented, for example, and this includes, the job titles for our classified employees. So this offers even more detail into what these, just really simple numbers actually represent. The other content that I would call out in the appendices is our schedule of appropriations. So for example, this is showing the approved budget. And this is our technical legal limit and appropriation level. So we do provide further detail on the budget in this budget document, but this column here where it says adopted budget, this is our legal appropriation level by fund, and funds must be balanced. So you'll see resources and requirements balancing in this view. Juno, what did I miss about the schedule of appropriations? Is there anything else that we should mention?
I think you covered it. This is the district's legal appropriation level for expenditures. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to shift over towards volume 2 to just do a quick overview of that budget document. But before I do that, I'm just going to pause if there were any questions.
Alex, I cannot seem to find the link to get to these actual. I was able to pull up the proposed, but not the actual budgets.
So for the proposed volume 2?
Whatever that's a proposed volume 2. Even the adopted link,
volume 1, it should be linked in the slideshow that I sent you. But
they don't seem to be active links.
It's also in pps.com, pps.net/budget. Both of them are also on that page as well.
Okay. Can somebody link it in the chat, maybe?
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks, Juno. I'll send this out as an attachment because other folks have said that links aren't working, and they do seem to work for me. So I'm sorry that that happened. Maybe it's a Google Drive thing sharing it as a link.
They seem intermittent.
Do we have a chat?
Actually, I must have disabled chat because it's not allowed in public meetings. So Erin will make sure you find them. I can just send it to you over email really quick.
Great.
But if you search in your search engine for PPS adopted budget, it will likely be the first thing that comes up. I do that all the time. Okay, so these are our school reports. So we offer these to provide more transparency for communities around what is spent at the school level. This is really a wealth of information here. Some of it is kind of slightly repeats some of the content that we already have in volume 1 around school staffing. And some of the factors. I think volume 1 has even maybe a little bit more information on the ratios and things. But I'm going to click into one of these ISRs. So I'm going to click into Sellwood in our table of contents. And so this has, similar to our budget book, has multiple years of actual spend represented. And then it has projections for enrollment data. The enrollment data on the top, and then multiple years of actual spend, and then a budget column as well. So it is organized, it's showing the resources that are at the school. So they're school allocated FTE. So that means that these FTE are actually allocated to this school-based department. And then there are also centrally allocated resources. So for example, special education is a centrally allocated resource. That means it's managed centrally and is a central budget, but is allocated out to schools where there's need. But it also could include nutrition and custodial as well. So those are the tables that you see here. And then on the second page of each of these reports, we see more information around school dollars at the schools. And then it also provides dollars per student across each of these years. So a calculation of how much was spent per student at each of these schools. There's also demographic data on this about the school, and English language arts and math assessment system data is presented here as well. So that is a 2-page snapshot of resources and spend, demographics, student outcomes at each school at PPS. So that is available for you. You can find, a school that is meaningful to you and see what their per pupil spend looks like, how many FTE they have. And that's all available for you. And then I wanted to go to the heat map. But Juno, Stefan, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a comment. If there are Excel or CSV files or similars of these tables, that would be great. I think I wanted to have those last year and I couldn't get them. So when I say this up front, would be nice to have it. I feel like a lot of budget is like high level to see where things shift at a bigger level. But I think especially with some of enrollment changes and some of the staffing changes, it might be interesting to look at there is some imbalance where in certain schools, and you really can't do that if you have a PDF like that.
Heard. Yeah, we will do our best to provide this. I think we were able to provide this data that we're showing in this, we'll call this the heat map, but I'll see what I can do about additional data. Juno, would you be able to walk us through the heat map?
Yeah, so here we have, you can see that they're kind of blocked out by kind of school type. So up the first section, you see all of our high schools, then you'll see all our middle schools, our K-8s, and then our elementary schools. You also see a year-over-year trend for the last few years of what our ratios, student ratios are, and our staff ratios at each of these schools. And you'll also see the spend at each of these schools year over year. And so this is a really good way to see how certain schools are trending. For example, you can see at Benson, for example, you can see right in that area that we're we plan to spend $12,552 per student in the fiscal year 23-24. And you can see how that has progressed from previous years, and based off of the student enrollment and our staffing formula of any given year. So this is kind of a really good way to see the trends of each of these schools at a district level, and seeing it by kind of those groups of schools. So like the categories of schools like high school, middle school, K-8, and elementary. Again, you'll also see the impact of the math and English language arts scores that can correlate to the ratios and or the dollars spent per student. And then in the final column on the right-hand side, final 2 columns, you also see some demographics. So you'll see free and reduced lunch percentages, and then you'll also see if the school has any kind of designation, whether it's CSI or TSI or title, as well as if they have certain immersion programs and so on. Any questions?
What do the colors signify again?
It signifies the trend. And so you can see, for example, in the first few rows, like Benson and Jefferson, you can see that it compares the group's categories and the trends going forward throughout the years. So if it like starts out lighter and gets darker, or sorry, if it starts out greener and gets redder, that means things are trending worse. If it starts out redder and kind of goes in a green direction, it's kind of trending better or trending more. That's a great question. Thanks. Any other questions? All right.
Thanks, Juno.
Yep.
one other navigation thing is just if you are accessing these on your browser, you can rotate the PDF so that you can more easily see it without having to print a 180-page document to properly read it. So that was the overview that we had planned. And then, like I said, I have linked to the annual comprehensive financial report in our slides. And so that is linked for you there and is another view into the district's financials, which is our audited actual spend, which you also see represented in our budget for prior budget years. And that's all we had for tonight. And we did go a little bit longer than we had planned. So thank you for bearing with us and being here for this overview of the documents. I hope it was helpful and that folks can move forward and start exploring a little bit more before we have the documents in hand and ready to analyze. Just quickly on the next steps, this is kind of recapping the dates that we have already suggested. I'll go ahead and send out an email to finalize these new dates that I'm suggesting. And again, overall tracking towards a May 7th date for the CBRC reports, the local option and the annual budget review to be presented in a work session. And then I have additional dates beyond this that are relevant to the board activity in support of adopting the budget. And so that concludes our meeting. Any questions? Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for doing this. When I first came on CBRC, we didn't have a real thorough onboarding of, we didn't have access to the previous year's budget document. And so even though this team's kind of fast and furious, I'm sure for new committee members, it's more than I got. So that's really helpful, and feedback we get going in future years hopefully will help us with onboarding even more efficiently and effectively. So thank you for doing it.
Thanks for saying that, Grace. I appreciate that. Young?
Thanks. I know we're past time. I just wanted to suggest very briefly that as folks are looking into the financial section of Volume 1, pay attention to which funds you're looking at. So that section begins with kind of an all funds overview, so totaling up to more than $2 billion. And and I think we mentioned this in a prior meeting, but that includes probably half of that total is for bond projects and capital funds, and that's important to be aware of. If you're really focusing on sort of the annual operating budget, you might want to move on to the general fund pages in particular, because that's where most of the discussion about the budget priorities is going to be over the next few weeks and months.
Great point, and thank you. Okay, so if there are no other questions or comments right now, I'd like to pass it along to a member of our CBRC leadership team. I see that Mariah, it seems like, had to leave, but maybe Taz, if you're available, would you like to close us out tonight? And if not Taz, Stefan or Grace, would you be able to adjourn our meeting?
I found the mute button, so I can do it, unless Grace, you want to do it. Thank you so much, Alexander, for the presentation, for everyone, for the walkthrough of the budget. I think we have good of order. Any general comments, anything? I know it's late. I assume there's nothing there.
I was able to access the documents. Thank you. That's what I finally have.
That's a good start. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I was not able to access them, and the screen is really small here on my home computer. So, can we resend the links to those?
Yes, absolutely, Adrielle. Thank you. I will resend it right after the meet.
Great, thank you.
Any other general comments? Roger, was it a comment or a goodbye? I think that's a goodbye. I think you muted. All right, good. Then I think we close us out and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.